A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O,
From the ABCs to pomp and circumstance, it all happens so quickly. And we parents are there for our children. Hi, this is Sharon Marshall Lockett, your host on Home Sweet Homework. We've got a great program planned for you today. I'm Sharon Marshall Lockett. I'm glad you joined us again this week. Each week, I'm here sometimes with guests to help your children master their schoolwork and to help you master your children while they master their homework. Thank you for joining us. Professionally, I'm an educational staff developer, and that means I train teachers. I'm also a mom, and I was a single mom while my son was growing up. My son taught me a lot more about teaching and learning than any of my education classes did, and I had some great education classes. This week begins the march into the holiday season, so our topic appropriately this week is Say Thanks. And you know what? Whether we're in the holidays or not, it's a great idea and a great topic. Wonderful speaker Zig Ziglar says we all need a daily checkup from the neck up to avoid stinkin' thinkin', which ultimately leads to hardening of the attitudes. This week we'll be looking at creating your home culture of thankfulness. We'll be looking at getting through the tough times because holidays aren't fun for some people. And we'll be looking at the synergy that comes when we create in our children an attitude that says, pay it forward. So let's jump in. First, we want to talk about your home culture. Now, you may be thinking, I don't have a culture, but I promise you, you do. Culture is what really the messages in your home are. Sometimes you say, we'll all be home and we'll sit down and have dinner together. And then you don't follow through on that, and it doesn't take your children very long to know that they can get out of it if they decide to. Sometimes you say, yes, we do homework each evening, but you don't pay the price of reinforcing that, and your children know that they can get away without it. You see, culture is the unwritten messages that children get. Now, it's fascinating because students on a school campus know what the cultural messages are within a few hours of walking onto a campus. Teachers don't necessarily, but there is a communication circuit among the students. Once a negative culture is set, it's really hard to change. So I want to encourage you to create a home culture of thankfulness, a home culture that's positive, a home culture that looks on the bright side. When my son was first born, in fact, when I was pregnant with my first son, my husband and I sat down to talk about what we believed about raising children. We made some decisions during that time in our marriage. One of the decisions was that we would start in infancy saying words that were very hard on our parents. We decided that from infancy daily we would say the words, I love you, to our child. We decided we would also say, when we were wrong, the words, I'm sorry. You know, through the years, I've had friends say, but is that a bad idea? Do you want to admit to your children that you made a mistake? Yes, you do, because you're human and your children know it, whether you do or not. So that humility of being able to say, I'm sorry, is very important. The wisdom of owning it when you make mistakes is great modeling for your children. That mistakes are never fatal. The only fatal mistake is falling down one more time than you get up. We also decided that we would say daily, when we requested our child to do something, the words thank you. Now, there was wisdom in those three elements. We did some things that weren't very wise as well. One of our decisions when we talked over what we would do in raising children was that when they're old enough to ask, they're old enough to know. And there is some truth in that. We decided we would use real words. Now, we came to regret that decision and to alter it a little bit when our 2-year-old explained the difference between boys and girls to the grocer clerk. But we've never doubted the wisdom of saying the words "I love you," the words "I'm sorry," and the words "thank you." Now, how does that help in the classroom? And it is amazing how it helps, and with an interesting dynamic. I worked with several students who would say to me, "I've got a rotten, awful, terrible, racist teacher, and I hate him, and I am going to sit in his class and flunk." Our initial reaction to statements like that is to argue with them, to say, "Oh, you don't mean that, honey. Oh, well, he's not so bad. Oh, well." We learned not to argue the point because that just polarizes you. We're all, after all, on the same team. So instead, we would say to them, "Well, tell me about him. What does this terrible teacher do? What does he say? What makes you feel that way?" We let the students express themselves, and that's an important thing. When your children come home and they're emotional and they're upset, let them express what's going on inside and listen them out. We parents are sometimes so busy thinking about our retort and how wise we are and what wonderful things we have to say that we jump in too soon. And they listen to us better if we listen to them first. Well, after we listened them out, we would sometimes say, "You know what? If what you tell me is true, I don't think I'd like the guy either. But you know what happens if you sit in his class and fail? He gets a paycheck and you have to take the class again next year." That's what we call stinkin' thinkin'. Now, I didn't originate that. I got that from Zig Ziglar, stinkin' thinkin', which ultimately leads to hardening of the attitudes. Then we would say to them, "Now, if what you say is true, it doesn't sound like the teacher likes you very much either. So if you want to get back at him, work really hard, earn high grades, make him give you an A. He'll hate it." We'd giggle, we'd laugh, and then we would begin to empower them with tools to take responsibility for their own learning. In the 3 years of developing the SCORE program, only one charge of teacher racism stood after we taught the students to do things differently, after we taught them to take responsibility, after we taught them to become responsible students in the classroom. And by the way, the one charge that stood was a teacher who was sick. He died about 2 years later of a brain tumor, and I'm sure it was working on him during that time because teachers tend to be pretty good people when you sit down and have a talk with them. They just are frustrated. You know how frustrated our children can get us? Well, imagine having 30 at a time for an hour at a time, like your high school and middle school teachers do. So don't be afraid to talk to the teacher when something comes up. But the big thing is that your job as parents is to empower your children to take charge, to take responsibility for a situation. What I'm really talking to you about is what we call problem solving. It's taking a look at any situation that's frustrating to us, that appears negative to us, and looking for the positive, for the what we can learn underneath it, for the good in it, for the good things about it, for the lessons it has to teach us. One summer, we ran a summer residential program. Our students were high-risk students. They were struggling, and we combined it with a teacher workshop. Now, we divided the teachers into groups and had them do some special work in language arts with small groups of our students. Most of the groups were fabulous, but in one group, the group of teachers decided they didn't want to work with our kids, that our kids were losers. And so they came in with a horrible attitude. Well, like what usually happens in situations like this, the week was almost over before my students leveled with me to let me know what was going on. One of the things I try to teach students, and one of the things I hope you teach your children, is don't let it go too long. Talk to me the minute you're frustrated. Let's talk this through. Let's deal with it up front, because prevention has always been less costly than cure. It's a lot easier to deal with in the early stages. Well, our project was almost over before I knew anything about it. And I volunteered to go with the students in to confront the teachers. They talked to their peers and about the exciting things their peers were learning and came away saying we were cheated. I volunteered to go with the students and they said no, they wanted to handle this one themselves. So instead, I spent the evening when they would normally have been doing their homework giving them skills for making I statements, not you statements, for owning, not judging, not blaming. And they blew away their teachers the next day. They sat them down and told them, I felt cheated because you didn't take this assignment seriously. I felt cheated. I felt like you didn't think I was worth your time. My friends learned exciting things, and I feel like I didn't learn anything this summer. Well, in the outcome, I think probably that group learned the most of all because they learned how to take a positive approach to dealing with a negative situation. They learned how to maintain an attitude of gratitude in the middle of tough times. So back to your home. Is your home a culture of thankfulness? When was the last time you said thank you to your children for something they did? When was the last time you asked them please? When was the last time you rewarded them for going above and beyond? And then maybe when was the last time you went above and beyond for them? When they're frustrated with that old homework assignment, do you teach them to have an attitude of gratitude? Do you teach them to sit down and say, what am I learning? What can I learn from this situation? When they have a conflict with a peer or a teacher, or you for that matter, do you know how to say, let's get through this together, let's work it out? Let's learn from it, let's grow from it, let's be thankful for the lesson that it teaches. Well, I've been talking a lot about tough times, and we're facing the holidays. So let's move into the second point today of getting through the tough times in our lives. One of the interesting things about holidays is for some of us, they conjure up wonderful thoughts and feelings and reactions and anticipation. And for others, getting through the holidays is horrible. Sometimes the holidays are a vivid reminder of the ideal or of things that we've lost. In fact, on my own Christmas list, looking at it, this year I have been so saddened because I had to take off names of friends who have died in the past year. When families are split, when friends have died, as the holidays approach, they're sometimes hard to get through. So I'd like to walk through some principles of what you can do if these holidays find you facing tough times. If you have had a recent loss, if your home is dysfunctional around the holidays, if you have a family member that continues the dysfunction, it will show up in your children's behaviors leading up to the holidays. They may be more lethargic, they may be way too busy running and doing things. They may pick fights. Generally speaking, any major change in behavior in a child is a sign that something is going on, that something is wrong. So watch your children, and if you discover that their behavior is changing, it may be time for you to sit down and work through whatever it is that's going on in your home. This actually is a tough topic to talk about, even for me leading up to the holidays. But one year I gave a workshop and teachers brought a student in who had had a recent loss. Now I've dealt a lot with loss and grief and worked with students and worked in my own family. I lead the Divorce and Grief Recovery Program at Crystal Cathedral as a volunteer. and I thought I was prepared. We started around the room with middle school students and said, "Tell me why you're here." Before we got around the room, I realized that I could never be prepared for what I was about to listen to. People say, but children are resilient, but they don't understand, but they get through it. And those are just not true. Children are resilient, yes, amazingly so. But they do understand when something is wrong in their home. They do grieve when they lose a friend or a pet or a loved one or a relationship. And they do react when there's dysfunction in the home. So, what can you do about it during this holiday season? Let me give you just a few pointers. Number one pointer is you talk about it. The dysfunctional family is the one that says don't talk, don't trust, don't tell. Well, the functional family says let's talk. With talking comes laughter. It's okay to laugh at the idiosyncrasies. It's okay to recall a memory and laugh about it. With talking come tears. Cry the tears. Tears were meant to be cried, and when they go inside, they create some poor behavior on the part of our children. So if something has happened in your family, in your home, in your neighborhood, be sure you take the time to remember, to sit down and talk about it as a family, as a group in the days leading up to the holidays. We had some trauma during my son Jeff's early years. Our second child died. One of our friends said perhaps the best thing you can do for him is to teach him how to forget. Well, she loved me. The advice was given in love, but it was very poor advice because there's no such thing as a child forgetting. My message to you is that when you've had a loss, when you've had a grief, when you've had a heartache, especially as the holidays approach, the best thing you can do for your children is to give them skills and teach them how to remember. They can't forget, no matter what you say, no matter how hard you try. So in teaching them how to remember, you teach them to cherish the memories, that the memories belong to them. You teach them to live in the real world rather than to retreat into an imaginary world that in grief terms we call denial. Often I have parents say, should I cry in front of my children? And the answer to that is an overwhelming yes. Not uncontrollably, not in such a manner that would exclude your children, but yes, tears are human, tears are normal. You need to be human. You need to model for your children the fact that you can be honest about the pain, that you can cry the tears, and then you can be honest about the joy and move forward with hope. Great lessons for your children. When you see that your children are struggling with something, you can have them write about it or draw a picture of it or sing a song of it. Write a little song and sing it for me. It's amazing how their thoughts and their feelings and their energy goes into their creative. With older children, we give them journal topics and journal assignments because writing helps get it out of them. And by the way, when they write, when they talk, when they sing, when they draw, you'll be able to understand a little bit better what they're going through, which gives you parents the skills to help them get through. Drawing and journaling and talking are actually great therapy. So help your children do that during the holidays. If you've lost a loved one this year, let them write a letter to that loved one saying things they wish they could say and just expressing how much they'll miss that person. Now, I don't know about you, but the best way that I can find to say thank you to someone is the concept that I call pay it forward. There are dozens of people who have helped me through the very tough times in my life. Success is really the best revenge, and the best thing that I can do to say thanks to them is to turn around and help someone else through tough times. The best way I can say thanks to those who voted for me when I couldn't vote for myself is to become successful and say thanks to them. Now, for that reason, there's a synergy and there's a wisdom in the concept of pay it forward. And my assignment to all of my students every year as they face the holidays is to take some time to enjoy just to be, just to veg, just to love life, and to find a way to do something good for someone else over the holiday season. That's a homework assignment in my classes. When students begin doing group projects of helping someone else, there are amazing things that come out of it. I tried to help my son on an assignment one time, and he kept thinking, isn't this cheating? Isn't it cheating if I let you look at my paper and tell me how to make it better? And there's a point where we want to help, and there's a point where we want to back off and let them do their own thing and learn what they need to learn. But I laughed when he said that to me and said, you know what? That's the way life is. We need each other. We never know until we get feedback from someone else how our work is being received. I told him what I'll share with you. When I write a book, I write, and there's part of it that's hard work, that's labor, and there's part of it that just is inspired. It flows. Then I go over it at least 3 times and edit and change words and rearrange and delete and add and make it better. I do my best job. I do everything I possibly can do with it alone. Then I send copies to somewhere between 3 and 10 people. Those people scratch it up and write me notes and tell me what they liked and tell me what they didn't like and correct a word and react to it and tell me whether they think it's worthy or not. And I look at 3 to 10 critiques of my work and take from some and take from others and rework it and put together a brand new draft. If I'm not sure that what I've got is good, I may do that all over again. I then send my very best work to an editor who goes over it again. And some publishing houses have 3 separate editors, one for grammar, one for flow, and one for content. Those 3 editors sometimes send it back to me for me to rework it one more time. And after this long, detailed process that involves anywhere from 5 to 20 people, I get to sign my name on the book and act like I wrote it myself. That's the way life is. We work in teams, we work together, and life goes better together. There is a synergy and a wisdom in the concept of teamwork, in the concept of being thankful, in the concept of thinking positively, in the concept of paying it forward. This year, for my group project coming into the holiday season, we've decided to do something for military. Probably we'll do some kind of volunteer work or something through Veterans Hospital. It's not that we don't want to support the other guys, it's that our resources are limited and so we have to focus. But we will say thanks, we will pay it forward. We will offer up our gratitude to those people who served us. Maybe next year we'll go to a homeless shelter, but this is our this year project. I started doing a project of some kind every holiday season when several years ago I joined an angel tree organization and went to a home for battered children. We provided Christmas for the battered children. We sang carols, we brought gifts in, and we selected one child that was our child over Christmas and bought what they wanted. We got their holiday gift lists, and it was amazing how simple they were compared to what our children ask for. My guy was grateful just to get a pair of black sweatpants. I put in a few extra things in his gift. It was a time in my life when I was absolutely broke, and my first thought was, I can't afford to buy Christmas for another child. But I had that nagging feeling inside that this one was mine and I needed to do it. And I will never be the same. One of the things I've learned about the holiday season is that in doing for others, you actually are doing for yourself. Now, the next question is, what do your children really want for the holiday season? In several of our surveys, two things came through loud and clear. One is they want more free time. They want that more than they want presents. And two is they want relationship. They want relationship with you. They want to know that you're on their team. They want to get to know you as people. They want to spend time together. In spite of their outward attitudes, they don't mind helping with the family chores and things like that. But they want to feel like we're in this together. They want to feel like they're carrying their weight, you're carrying your weight, you're doing things together. They would much rather do something with you than to do something for you. Well, today we've looked more at attitude kinds of things. We've looked at creating a culture in your home of thankfulness, at getting through the tough times in a positive way. We've looked at the synergy and the wisdom of paying it forward. Next week, I'm going to put you to work. Next week, we're going to look at how you can help your child memorize, how you can help them drill for items that have to be learned by memory, how you can help them use the rules, the memory rules. And, by the way, the following week, we'll continue to look at memory, but this time it will be, how do you break the rules? How do you use different strategies? How do you know what to do when what you're doing doesn't work? When I started the SCORE program, I interviewed 600 students one-on-one. In many of those interviews, they had to memorize and they hadn't done their memory work. In geometry especially, you have to memorize theorems. I asked students in geometry who were getting a grade of B or below if they'd memorized their theorems. Now, I've been at this for over 20 years now, and I have yet to find geometry students earning a grade below an A who have memorized their theorems. That didn't surprise me, but the answer to my next question did. I said to them, how do you go about trying to learn something? And the most structured answer I ever got was, oh, I read through it 2 or 3 times. Well, memory is the easiest thing that we can empower our students and our children to do. And parents, it's an easy support role for you in helping your children with homework. We don't want to take away a responsibility that belongs to them, but we do want good tools to empower them. So join me next week as we dig into the concrete how-tos of learning how to memorize, the memory rules, and then the following week, when and where and how to break the memory rules. There are always questions you have, specific questions. And if you have personal questions that you want answered, you might consider joining our subscription series of Home Sweet Homework. You'll have unlimited internet and email access to our team of educators who can answer your questions. Visit my website, homesweethomework.com, add your name to the mailing list, and you'll receive a free copy of our publication, Follow the College Prep Road. Join us next week, and until then, remember, even a kindergartner remembers the song Pomp and Circumstance. Give your children roots, teach them to fly, and give them wings. This is Sharon Marshall Lockett, HomesweetHomework.com. Thank you for joining us.